Hello everyone, Equipment War here, and welcome to my updated version of my Dual Wield Duelist. I can start by going over my passive skill tree, then my skill gems, and then my gear. If you have any questions about any of that, feel free to ask me in the comments. So, let's get started. Starting as a duelist, obviously. I went for the attack speed and accuracy in the beginning, then I went for all of the physical damage nodes here. Then I went for armor evasion life nodes here. Then Master of the Arena, Bravery, Art of the Gladiator, and then Devilish. Then down here I took Gorn's Blood, and here you have a choice. Either you go for Overwhelming Odds and use Cleave, or you go for Dual Strike and use Might and Influence instead. So it just depends on what skill you want to use. If you want to use Cleave, you're gonna use Overwhelming Odds. If you're gonna use Dual Strike, you're gonna use Might and Influence. So that's up to you what skill you prefer. Right now I'm using Cleave, but I'm gonna talk more about skill gems later. I went for Cloak and Chain, some nice protection boost and some resistance. Then I went down and took the whole big Dual Wield Will with Blade Barrier, so increases my chance to block, and also give me some nice bonus when I'm dual wielding. And also Amber Dexterity for some really nice attack damage with my main hand and some really nice bonus to my attack speed with my offhand, which is quite nice. Then I went for Blade Dancer. I have Iron Reflexes, so I convert my evasion into armor. So you can use both split evasion armor gear or evasion gear in this build. And I took Swagger for some other more boost to my block chance and my survivability. Also some quite nice bonus to my damage. So, and I also went for Vitality Void, and this note here, this single note here, this life and mana leech note here, are my main source of mana. This is the only source of mana I need in this build. Moving on, I took Gladiator's Preservations. I think this one is called, whatever it's called, it's a really good note. It also increases my leech when using my physical attacks. Also increases my damage with one-handed weapon. Overall, a really nice note. I have another Yule Socket here. This Yule Socket just gives me some damage and some block chance when dual wielding. I have the whole big life wheel here, and I have Path to Warrior. Then I went to the Marauder area. I picked up Warrior's Blood, Heart of the Warrior, and Born to Fight. And these nice life and armor notes here. I went here, I took Steadfast, so I get some really nice protection when I have Fortify, and I always have Fortify. More than that later. I also have Lust for Carnage, so some really nice attack speed boost, and also some really nice leech for my physical attacks. And by the way, I'm doing pure physical damage here, so no chaos damage, no elemental damage. I have Juggernaut. Then I have Razor's Edge and Blade Master. Also another Yule Socket here, this one with attack speed, increased weapon damage when dual wielding, and increased damage, also some block chance. You can have life on these as well, which are quite nice as well. Then I have Barbarism, and I am not a crit build, so I'm using Resolute Technique. This build is not that hard to convert to a crit build, but I choose in this particular version to not go crit, so I went for Resolute Technique. I also have Strong Arm, and that's pretty much my skill tree. So let's take a look at my Ascendancy skill tree. I'm actually an champion, and I went for Fortitude, so 100% of the time I have Fortify. Which means, when I have Fortify, it reduces all damage I take from hits by 20%. Reduce damage taken. And yes, to get this one you need to take Unstoppable Hero, and also I can't get stunned when I have Fortify, and I also have Fortify, so I'm immune to stuns. And then I went for Master of Medal, and last I went for First to Strike, last to Fall, which is really nice. So that's pretty much my past skill tree. If you have any questions, please let me know. So let's talk about skill gems. I'm gonna start by talking about my main damage skills, which is either Cleave or Dual Strike. You can use whether one of those you want. One quick side note, if you're gonna use Cleave, you're gonna use a Yule called Overwhelming Odds, as I talked about before. Or if you're gonna use Dual Strike, you can use a jewel called Mighty Influence. Overwhelming odds you can get by doing a quest in Act 5, but Mighty Influence needs either to drop for you, or you have to trade it with another player. For my support game, for my main damage skills, there are Brutality, Maim, Faster Attacks, Melee Physical Damage, and Fortify. And now you may be wondering, hey, why are you using Fortify when you already have permanent Fortify? Well, Fortify right now gives a crap ton of damage to your melee attacks, so I use this one. But you can switch it out for either multi-strike or chance to bleed, which will do a lot of damage, but when they changed the multi-strikes how it worked, I didn't want to use it anymore, so I went with Fortify instead. For my mana reserves and auras, you basically have two options. You can either use the classic Vulnerability and Blasphemy combo. You put those two linked together and all enemies that come close to you are automatically cursed with Vulnerability. Or you can use the new aura called Pride, I think it is Pride is pronounced, which basically may almost do the same as Vulnerability, but with one big difference. Enemies around you take more physical damage, and if they are standing there longer, they take even more physical damage. And you can actually run both of them. You can just use a Vulnerability on, for example, a cost on damage taken, and automatically curse enemies around you with that setup, or you can self-cast Curse with them. So there are some other things you can use both at the same time. However, right now I am using Pride. And I'm also using Herald of Purity, which gives you a lot of damage because it adds flat physical damage to you. I'm also using Blood Rage for some really nice damage boosts. It gave me a lot of attack speed, give me life leech with my physical damage. It also gave me a 25% chance to get a French Charge on kill, which is really nice. It gives you a lot of damage. I'm using two movement skills, which is Whirling Blades and Leap Slap. And they're both supported by Life Gaining Hit and Blood Magic. Blood Magic means that I'm using my life instead of mana for these skills, which means I can use them how much I want and never haven't even to think about running out of mana. I'm using one cost on damage taken, which are linked to Vortex and Arctic Breath, and they are both supported by increased duration. The reason I'm using these two skills is to slow down enemies that attacks me, so they are moving slower and do slower attacks. You can, if you want, as I said before, switch out one of those and use a Vulnerability instead. Just keep in mind that your Vulnerability's level needs to be lower than your cost on damage taken. I have a whole video where I explain how that works later. I'm going to link that in the description if I remember it. And for my last one, I'm using a Vengeance setup. It's not a must-have, but it's quite fun to use, and it do some damage here and there. So using Vengeance together with melee physical damage, life leech, and life gain hit for some extra life here and there. And that's pretty much my skill game. If you have any questions about my skill gram, please let me know. So let's talk about items. I can start by talking about my weapons. You're gonna try to get a pair of swords which have as high physical damage as you can get and as high attack speed as you can get on both of your weapons. For a helmet, try to get a helmet which have good life roll and the resistance you might need. Also try to get a helmet with some good armor roll or a good combination of both armor and evasion. When it comes to your amulet, try to get an amulet which have life and resistance on it. And if you can, try to get some flat physical damage as well. Pretty much the same thing with your rings, life, resistance and flat physical damage. For your body armor, try to get an armor which have as good as you can get life, the resistance you might need. And also some good armor value, either in pure armor or armor evasion type. For your gloves, you want life and resistance you might need. And also try to get some flat physical damage and attack speed if you can. For your belt, try to get a belt which are a rustic stash because it increases your physical damage. And again, try to get a belt which have life and resistance you might need. And finally for the boots, try to get a pair of boots which have life and resistance you might need. For my flasks, I'm using 2 life flasks, which one of those, this flask here, increases my armor when I'm using it. Another one removes bleeding, and by the way, always carry an anti-bleeding flask, because you might need them one day. And I'm using 2 Lion's Roar, which give me a huge boost to my damage when I'm using them. And I'm using a Basalt Flask for some extra protection against physical damage and also removes bleeding. And that's pretty much my gear. If you have any questions about my gear, please let me know. Before I forget it, when it comes to the bandit, I killed all of them and took the pass skill point. But you can help Oak and it will give you some good stuff in return, like increased physical damage, life regeneration and physical damage reduction. Anyway, I thank you for watching. Tell me what you think about the build and I see you guys soon.